And we're back. We're joined by Lips from Anvil. How are you today?
I'm great, man.
Well, it's so good to connect with you. I know you're working on an exciting new album, and we've got such a legacy you've given us. I mean, you know, take us back for a little bit. You know, growing up in Canada, what led you to get involved with music? Who were some of your musical heroes, and what were some of the steps that led you to want to make music?
Well, we know it's really interesting. It happened to me really, really young. I mean, I started realizing what music was before I actually began playing, and it was because I saw Elvis Presley on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Wow.
That long ago, and it was like, and I think some of my first recollections were Elvis Presley, you know, so I became aware very, very quickly what was going on, being born in '56, you know.
Sure.
So by the time I was 4 years old, you know, 1960, I guess Elvis was back from the war, and it was a big deal at that time. So it was everywhere, and that was my first recollections of music. But I think that when the Beatles actually more so the Rolling Stones, it was my sister's 16th birthday, and she got the December's Children album, which is, we're talking about 1966, basically. Maybe a bit earlier, more when I start thinking about it, but when I started hearing songs like Satisfaction, Get Off of My Cloud, and things like that, I went, listen, wow, you know. And then seeing that stuff on TV, by the time I was 10, my dad brought home an electric guitar, and I never owned an acoustic. Because I was lucky enough that he bought the right thing for the right kid, you know what I mean? And I never looked back. It's what I kind of made the decision at 10 years old. This is what I'm going to do. And from that point on, I just followed what the innovations that happened to electric guitar. And certainly by the time I guess 1967, when Hendrix came out, it was a whole new. It was like a whole new vision. It's like all of a sudden it went from black and white to color, in the sense that listen to what the sound of a guitar can do when you distort it, or turn a Marshall amp up to 10. And I've been following that sound and wherever I could find it from then on in. And where did that lead me? Well, it leads you to where, you know, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, where is it going to lead you other than into hard rock music? That's what I listened to my entire childhood, and that's what I aspired to be and hoped to be from the time I was a child. So it's not, and it's what I do best, you know, or what I feel I do best, and therefore it's a major driving force in my life. It's what I center my life and have sacrificed, into a certain degree, a lot of other opportunities that could have brought financial security that I didn't think it was, you know, for me personally, it was not. That's not what life is about. It's about doing what you want to do, regardless of what it costs or what it doesn't cost, or what you make or what you don't make. I think that, you know, and following that philosophy, and that's how I came to have the driving force, and whatever you want to call it.
Well, you know, when we're talking about 64, 65, 66, we're talking about 50 years ago. I mean, obviously you've kept that teenager alive inside of you, and all the greats have. Why we've seen people, you know, even in their 20s and 30s, you know, go get that day job and the wife in the picket fence and give up on that, you know, that youthfulness. How do you keep that spirit of the teenager alive in you, and why is it important to never let that fan, you know, inside of all of us die?
Well, the more that you let it, the more that you grow up, the less opportunities go, you know, they fade away. And music is a completely different life, and it's something that it's hard to put it really into words. You know, why? You have a calling in your soul. It's not something that you necessarily have a choice. You know what you identify who you are and what you are, and that's what you do. You don't really think about it outside of that, and it isolates you from the negativity, because as you get older, you learn all the information and all the negativity and telling you how you can't. So the more that you grow up, the more that you believe you can't. And there's a certain aspect about being a musician that makes you never grow up. I mean, fundamentally, that's what it is. It's not letting yourself grow up a certain aspect. And growing up to a great degree is learning negativity. And I just don't know that it's a good thing at the end of the day, but teach his own. You know,
yeah,
for me, that's just the way it is. You know?
There's so much pleasure, you know, in that youthful exuberance, you know, of loving music, loving life, loving people, you know, and, you know, if we had more of that in the world, it might be a better place.
Well, I think that what it really comes down to, doing something that you love, then time stands still. You can do it forever, and you don't feel it as though it's taking time. And I think that there's a certain aspect of being in a band that has kept me in a state of the state of 25 years old and never got beyond it. It's really bizarre, because I mean, I'm meeting people, like, as an example, I have fans that I met when they were children, and now they're grown adults with families. You know, and it's quite remarkable to actually see it. And and to me, it's like, that's still the kid that I met, you know, and it doesn't seem like that long ago.
Well, you know, Angus Young...
It just has a timelessness. It puts you into a state of timelessness that's really... it just seems like one long day, or one long year.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain.
It's a very exciting. You know, Angus Young could be in his late 60s or 70s, but when he puts that young schoolboy outfit on, it brings us all back to the first time we heard AC/DC. Music is the backdrop of all of our lives. It's the only way that you can have perspective on time. Sure. Because I mean, it's really one of the very few things in the state of being a human that you can actually measure time by a piece of music. You can actually put your time and place in perspective. Yes. To where you are now. So, like, if I listen to Deep Purple in rock and I hear Speed King, I'm 15 years old all of a sudden.
I'm living in 1971, and it's like, wow, I can remember all the stuff that was going on in 1971 because I'm listening to this piece of music. There are very few things in life that do that other than music. I suppose the sense of smell and sometimes a photograph.
Sure.
But music really, really does it in a very deep and profound way. At least that's how that's how it is for me. So
yeah, well, it's been an amazing adventure that you've been on. I know your friend Rob Reiner's been there since high school with you and gone through the eras. I know at one point Lemmy was trying to get you to join, Motorhead when Fast Eddie Clarke left, and of course you had your relationship with David Krebs, who of course was managing Ted Nugent, Aerosmith, and you came through it all from Metal Blade Records to today. But talk about the documentary. What the seeds were that when Sasha came to you as your former roadie and said, I want to tell the story of Anvil. Obviously that has given you a whole new life, and so many people have found out about your band. Talk about the seeds of how that documentary was made and what it's meant to the band.
Well, it's actually a very unique situation because here was this 14 or 15-year-old kid that knocks at the change room door. He snuck into the Marquee in London, England, okay, underage. So he's not even allowed to be there, and now he's in our change room. And what a character. I mean, this was, it was our first time to England, and this guy was a really innocent 15-year-old kid, English kid, and full of so much exuberance and excitement, and it was an amazing feeling for us because here we were in a different place from Canada. We'd never been to Europe or particularly the UK, and here we are in this club that is famous to the Jimi Hendrix, The Who. Everybody's played here, and we're playing here. So we're celebrating it with this kid. And as it turns out, he says, listen, let me show you around town. And he takes us out and shows us around London. We go to Carnaby Street and buying bullet belts and all kinds of heavy metal paraphernalia at the time. And sure enough, we find out that he has family that's living in Toronto, and that his mother is actually from Toronto, where we come from. So her brothers live here in Toronto. So he said he was going to come visit his uncle and come and see us. And I went, yeah, right, And the next thing I know is there's a knock at my door, and there's Sasha. So he starts hanging out with us, and we took him out on the road, and it was kind of a very special kind of friendship. It was the kind of friendship that a guy of, I was 25 years old, and here's a 15-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid coming to visit. I'm gonna give this kid the time of his life. He was way beyond his years in wisdom and intuitiveness and just knowledge in general. A very, very kind of special kid. What's he doing hanging around with 25-year-olds? But yet it was enough to amuse the band and us, so why not take him with? So he's a drummer, so let him roadie for Rob, let him set up Rob's drums and so forth, and that's what we did. Now, what happened was, of course, as time went on, he had to finish school. He had there's a lot of stuff, that happens after 15, 16 years old. We hung out with him till he was about, 17, and then we lost touch. So, henceforth, he's like 37 years old, and he gets in touch with me on the internet, and it's like 25 years later, something like that. I'm going, holy shit, what's going on? He says, listen, I want you to come visit me. come down to Los Angeles, I'm going to send you tickets. And I'm thinking, you're going to send me tickets? What the fuck? Where you got money? What are you talking about? He tells me not to worry about it. And I end up showing up down in Los Angeles I'm standing on the platform at LAX, and up drives this little sports car, a little Jaguar sports car with the roof down, and there behind the wheel is Sasha, but it's not the 16, 17-year-old kid that I remember seeing. It's a middle-aged man, somebody that's close to 40 years old. I'm like going, oh my God, right? So I get into the car, and of course, it felt as though absolutely the timelessness, like I say, and it just, to me, it's the same person. You look into their eyes, it's the same person. There is no time, so kind of pick up the conversation from where we last left off, and after the weekend, I get a call from him, but during this weekend, he's showing me around Los Angeles, and I discovered that he had told me that he became a screenwriter and had written the story for Steven Spielberg's movie, The Terminal. And I started flipping out because I had just seen the movie, and I saw his name on the credits, but I for whatever reason, I just kind of wrote it off. It can't be the same guy. You know what I mean? You just get this, it can't be. But as it turns out, it was. And, we spent that weekend just hanging out, fucking cruising around LA, and it's just incredible. And him discovering what Anvil had been doing all those years. And we had gone over to his good friend's place, this guy by the name of Steve Zalian, who was part of the making of Schindler's List. Now, I mean, I don't know these people by name or who they are or what they've done. I'm certainly, it's not my thing, Anyway, I end up at this guy's place, however successful he might be or whatever. But apparently he is, and that's all great. But the interesting aspect is, he looks at me and then looks at Sasha and goes, what the fuck? Who's this guy? So Sasha tells him all about me, and in his opinion, he thought that it would make a great idea for a movie, and that was kind of the seed to Sasha. His suggestion. This is a perfect subject for a movie. I mean, this guy, you grew up with him, it was part of your childhood. It's a real personal touch. I mean, no one else could do it, right? And that really attracted Sasha. So about a week later, after I'd been down to Los Angeles, I mean, I had really no idea this was even being brewed or even thought about. I had no conception. Sasha gives me a call, and he says, listen, man, I'm coming up to Toronto. Come pick me up at the airport and take me over to Uncle Marty's. Well, Uncle Marty's is his uncle's place where we used to pick him up 25 years ago. So I pick him up at the airport and drive him over to his uncle's place, and he sits me down in the living room, and he goes, I'm going to make a movie about you. And I've completely lost it. I totally lost it. Because, I mean, to me, at that moment, it's not like it's some guy with a video camera, you know what I mean? This is somebody who's Hollywood stuff, so I'm going, a Hollywood movie about Anvil? Really? I lost it. I mean, to me, it was a moment when I came to the realization that everything that I'd been through had a reason and had instantly been all my dreams had been answered in one moment. That this was my break, the break that you wait for your whole life as a musician, that break. And that's exactly what it ended up being. So that's the seeds of how it happened and why it happened.
Yeah, I mean, you can just never predict what can happen, but if you put that good energy out there and, you know, you like you say, you stay in touch with the spirit that you started with, you know, anything's possible, you know, in life. You just have to have your antennas up and your good spirit, you know, glowing.
Well, the bottom line is, and what it really comes down to, had this 15-year-old come to the change room door of another band, he might not have gotten entry.
Sure.
He would never have made that connection. It has to do with that first initial connection for that movie to have come to life. The other thing is, you have to understand that no other band in the world is going to agree to having themselves being filmed under all the conditions that we were, without having the closeness with the director, so that you're completely unguarded and you're going on the premise that we can trust this guy, that he's not going to make us look like fools. That's enormous. That's how you get, it's that accessibility. So there's so many, on so many levels, there are so many reasons to how and why it worked, and why it might not have worked for somebody else, or didn't work for anybody else until now, or until then, right? So that's how I kind of see it.
Well, it definitely gave you a new lease on life, definitely brought you in front of, you know, VH1 and MTV's audience, and so many people around the world, you know, wanted to check out. But the fact that you're not just another new band, you've got this rich history, and people could really not only dig into your past, but, you know, celebrate you as a survivor, having done this, you know, since the 80s, you know, and I know you've had the chance of playing with people like AC/DC and Saxon and perform at the Download Festival, and you even got a chance to perform with Slash and Scott Ian playing the Ted Nugent song Cat Scratch Fever at Sundance. Talk about how that came together.
Well, it's just, these guys have been fans of Anvil for many years, so they're kind of friends, and they wanted to help in any way and be visible and be part of the party. So they were. I mean, they were both in the movie, and they were invited to come to Sundance and watch the movie at Sundance. And in fact, Tom Araya was at Sundance, and so was, and of course, Scott Ian, Slash was there. There were a lot of people at Sundance that happened to show up, and so we were playing. They made we had a gig there, and they came up and played. It was as simple as that.
And how was the choice of Catch Cat?
Well, that was Slash's idea. And we were told in the afternoon that that's what we'd be doing. And Cat Scratch Fever was a song that that we used to perform anyway. So it was play it once and just do it. It was like really, really simple for me. I knew all the lyrics. Not a problem. Played the song in our past, so it was really a non-issue thing, and we played it. And it's funny because there's a change up in the song. Ain't nothing dangerous, you know that part. And when you go to hit that chord, it's a I think it's a D sharp. Anyway, Slash hit a D when I'm hitting D sharp, and the look on Slash's face when he hit the wrong chord, considering it was his idea to play the song. I got a good laugh out of that.
Well, that's priceless. You know, rock and roll isn't supposed to be perfect. It's the rough around the edges.
It's just like he hits and it just goes, it's like, okay, wrong chord, Slash. And then he slips into the right one. Whoops. It's just funny.
Well, talk a little bit about that, because today's generation growing up with recording on computers and everything's auto-tuned and all smoothed out. Why is it important for rock and roll to have a little of that dangerous spirit, a little reckless abandon? It might be a wrong chord or a bum note here and there, but it's the spirit that makes it true.
Well, it's about the essence of humanity being in your music. And humanity is imperfect. And the closer that you get to perfection, the more sterile and boring it is to listen to. That's why.
Well, that's
so
great.
If you want to listen to click track music, it's not going to move. Not going to have any emotion to it. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing.
Yeah,
being mechanical.
If it's perfect, it could put you to sleep.
Yeah, it becomes a mechanical sound rather than a human sound. And the human sense of timing is slightly imperfect. And you know, if you that's what makes it what it is. So when you start a piece of music at a certain tempo and then you get to the guitar solo, it gets more exciting sometimes.
Sure.
So it speeds up a little bit. That's human. With a drum machine, it doesn't work like that. If you do it, or to a metronome, it doesn't do that. It has no room for it's getting exciting. It does not compute that. It just keeps playing the same. It does not get excited. It stays the same. And that's what the difference is. And that's the best way that I can put it into words, what the difference is between when you go too far in trying to be perfect. That's what happens.
Sure.
And it's really, really sensitive in the area of tempo. Never mind tuning and how hard you hit the chord on your guitar. Like if you really crash that chord, there's a split second that the string is hit so hard that it's actually bowing slightly out of tune. It's not perfect, but the way that sounds, it gives a sense of power and emotion. And if you re-record it and make it perfect, now you're going to lose that overemphasis that was first put there. And these are the imperfections are sometimes the most beautiful part of what makes a piece of art. And that's what's the difference between a photograph and a hand-painted painting.
Sure. Well, we love the realness. You guys have given us a great run of albums, from Metal on Metal to This Is 13, Juggernaut of Justice, Hope in Hell. Tell us about the making of the upcoming album and why it's so exciting now with crowdfunding to be able to involve the fans more, and what you hope to achieve with this.
This is a really unique situation. What's that? Actually, it's becoming very ununique at the end of the day, and it's really the new landscape in which bands are being able to actually record a record. And thank goodness for the movie and everything that has happened for Anvil, and I'm so grateful to everybody and everything. This has given us the opportunity to be able to go out and ask our fans to become part of, to actually pre-buy our CDs to help finance the record. Because what has actually happened is it's impossible for record companies to give advances anymore. They will not pay for your record because there is no record sales. There are really virtually no CD sales. CD sales have been diminishing virtually 50% every year. Every year it gets less and less. And every year it takes less and less of those sales to make it into the top 10 on Billboard. So in other words, bands that would never ever have had a top 10 release in their entire career are getting top 10 releases, are getting top 10 hits because of the genre of heavy metal being one of the last bastions of buying CDs. There's enough to actually make a mark that puts the bands into the top chart positions, and there's still virtually no sales. You're getting sales of somewhere around 25,000 that are putting you into the top 10, where it would normally have taken 250,000 copies to put you even close to the top 10 in the early 80s. It just gives you a difference of what the difference is of even making it to the charts are on CD sales today. So in other words, if a band is selling 25,000 records that would have normally sold 1 million records plus, and they're only selling 25,000 CDs, what are the other bands doing? What kind of sales are the other bands making? Probably in the hundreds at the best. So how are record companies going to pay $40,000 or $50,000 plus for the cost of recording a record when they can only sell 2,000 copies of a CD? They can't. The answer is they can't. So it just gives you some kind of understanding of what has happened. So there is no budgets to make records. Now, having said that, that has had an enormous trickle-down effect in the sense that producers' fees have been diminished virtually to nothing. Record companies have gone out of business. Recording studios no longer exist. It's completely changed the whole face of the way that business is being done in the music industry. So what has happened is the cost of doing records is completely diminished. Thank goodness, because otherwise no one would be able to record. Why? Technology. Technology has changed that, so now your budgets, you can record records for virtually nothing. So then what you're incurring are costs of transportation, hotels, living expenses. I mean, I'm going to Germany to record, so I mean these are the costs that are incurred. And luckily that in the genre of heavy metal, people are that diehard to want to be part of something, and it's not just like, here you're going to get a download for $10, but not only are you going to get a $10 download, you're going to have the ability, once you've put the money in, you're going to be able to see us in the studio, in the rehearsal studio. You're going to hear bits and bytes of songs that no one else is going to get to see. They might get 5 seconds of it, but you're going to get like 1.5 minutes at a time, at least. There's other things. You can buy time to come into the studio and sing as backup vocals, which we're going to have group vocals. there were a number of Skype guitar lessons, getting your name on the CD, on the packaging, T-shirts, extra bonus tracks that no one will, other than people who pledge, will get. See, that's the other aspect. Everybody's going to get a song that, anybody who pledges gets a song that no one else gets in any other way, and it's a specifically special pressing of the CD. So, I mean, it's a number of different things. The other aspect are fan club stuff, certain things that are not for sale for the rest of the public, that come only by pledging. There are certain T-shirts that you can only get from pledging. I'm not even sure. I guess you can have a visit to the studio, rehearsal studios, whatever. All kinds of in-person meetings, and buy an amplifier, buy a Lips vibrator, all kinds of things that you wouldn't normally just be able to get.
Well, we call that super fans, you know, and it might be a smaller number of people, but you know, you have more interaction with your fans. The fans have a more appreciation and a greater experience, and you know, we keep this music thing alive.
Yeah, well, the other thing is that when a lot of fans have asked, when I buy a CD, how much is the band actually getting? Well, in the real truth and scheme of things, when you buy it in a store, the band is getting virtually nothing. Virtually nothing. Maybe $1, right? In this particular case, every fucking penny's coming to us. So, and that's a beautiful thing. That means there is no one in between me and the fans. That it's an honest business transaction. You're going to get something directly from me. That's what is so ultimately different, and it's the only way to do business now, because it's the only way that you can possibly exist to make music. I mean, it still costs money. Everything costs money, so you have no choice. I mean, I don't mind taking the money out of pocket, and a certain portion of it will be, absolutely. But for my fans, who I'm willing to go out and, you know, give you experiences and certain things that you know, otherwise you can't do. I mean, you can buy handwritten all the lyrics, handwritten, you know, all kinds of stuff that you would not normally get. I mean, we're willing to do all these things. And it's a value, because people are going to get direct contact. It's not through a record company. You're actually dealing with me personally. You know, there's no one else involved, and that's what makes it spectacular. Now, having to understand that this is the way that the business model and the way that you have to do this, all the bands are doing this. It's the only way. How else are you going to do it? There's not enough money generated from the sales of records to actually make a record anymore. So you have to somehow find subsidized ways of doing it, whether it's meet and greets, whether it's buying a photograph or selling a photograph, or I mean, any of the above. You have to find other alternatives to making money in the music industry. That's just what it's all turned into. And I'm not using it as, it's not an excuse, it's an outright reason. Now, that doesn't mean I don't have a record deal. That's not the case at all, actually. But record companies are now becoming distributing branches of the way that business is done. And for distributing, they're going to get a fee from the sales of whatever they might get, if you understand what I mean. But I'm having to diversify. We're having to diversify our business in order to get to cost us the least amount of money when going to record out of pocket. So in other words, whatever deal I might make with the record company and whatever I might make from my pledgers, I will have to cover whatever shortfalls there are. But luckily and beautifully, it's not going to be that far off from being, well, we're going to make the budget. The way I see it, everything is coming into plan and everything is going to work out just absolutely beautifully. And we're in a really great place. And I think that at this moment, there's a lot of soul searching and wondering and judging and trying to understand how it all works and whether it does work at all or how it's being perceived, all the different aspects of doing this, because it is indeed our first time through it. So we're finding out all about it as we go, and we'll see how it all turns out. I mean, I'm an optimist. I'm sure it will be fine.
Well, I think there's a growing feeling out there that the music, the bands, the fans, we're all one, and we love the excitement of the music. We love Anvil, and we want to see everybody continue. It'd be a shame to think of life without music, that the only music we have is the music from the past, which was great. But, it's all about new ideas and moving forward. We never want to just live in the past. So, we really appreciate all the music you've given us. Any closing comments or advice you can give to the young bands or musicians out there? I know the business is constantly changing, but as far as the perseverance or the dedication it takes to master your instrument or become a great songwriter or live performer, what advice do you have to the young bands or musicians that want to follow in your footsteps?
You know what? At this point in time, it's so difficult to be optimistic because so many opportunities have been removed. No infrastructure in an industry that could otherwise be so thriving. I really don't know what the words of wisdom are in today. I really don't.
Well, not so much on the business, but artistically.
I'm optimistic in the fact that there are a lot of great bands, young bands that are just fantastic out there, that are certainly growing from the same roots that Anvil did, that Metallica did, that Slayer have, that all the bands, Iron Maiden, all the bands. I think it's all connected. It's rock music with distorted guitar that is still growing and still continuing. It is never-ending, beautiful form of music that will never go away. And I think I really believe that there's a lot of young musicians out there that are discovering all the stuff that, of course, that I've listened to, and they're now listening to it. There's an incredible history, and I think that a lot of different aspects are going to get used again in different ways, and I think that it's a very, very positive thing. The only negative aspect is we have to learn how to make a new business so that musicians can survive financially. That's what has to be created, rebuilt again in a new model, and that's what really has to happen. And I'm hopeful that it will. And I think that if anything, I think that bands like myself that are venturing down these new roads and trying new avenues to make this all work will help pave the way for the younger musicians, and I hope that they can take an example and and attempt to do the same things I've done. But initially, what you have to do, most important of all, is come up with a uniqueness and individuality. And more than anything else is keep your band together. Be dedicated. That's your winning ticket, is keeping a band together. That's the hardest part. You can beat the world together, but broken up, you're never going to get anywhere. And if you give up, you're never going to get it. So it's all about the depth of dedication and sacrifice you were willing to make. And if you're willing to buy packs of cigarettes every day to fulfill your habit or your pleasure, then, and it could cost you money, then you should be just as willing to spend money on your music and what you love every day to make your dreams come true. Dedication from top to bottom. Everything that you do in life has a price tag. And being a musician has a price tag. Be willing to accept that and move on. And that's it. And that's all I can tell you.
Well, Lips, it's been a great chat. Can't wait for the new album and to see you back here in California and on the live stage. Thank you so much for all the great years of music, and please keep on rocking.
Okay, I will, man. Thanks. Thank you. You have a good day.